Welcome to the Skillwork Forum. As a reminder, this podcast exists to help companies overcome the skilled labor shortage in America. I'm Tim, and I'm joined again with my partner, Brett from Skillwork. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic probably many of you hear more than you'd like, something that's typically called the new normal, or what life is going to be like after we come out of this COVID-19 crisis that we're currently going through. And Brett, I don't know, we seem to have kind of short memories as a people, and you and I have been around a little longer than maybe some that listen to this, and it's not the first time we've faced big challenges like this in our country and our world. I got a quote I want you to listen to, Brett, and see if you can kind of place where you think this may have come from. So here's a quote: "For some organizations, near-term survival is the only agenda item. Others are peering through the fog of uncertainty, thinking about how to position themselves once the crisis has passed and things return to normal. The question is, what will normal look like? While no one can say how long the crisis will last, what we find on the other side will not look like the normal of recent years." End quote. Where do you think that quote came from, Brett? Any ideas?
Well, it sounds like, a COVID-19, obviously there's a lot of talk, a lot of thought leaders out there talking about, what this looks like. So it sounds like something fresh off of yesterday's press. So.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. And actually, it came from one of the managing partners at McKinsey & Associates from 11 years ago, around the 2008-2009 financial crisis, speaking about coming out of that. So just a decade ago, we were talking about coming out of this terrible crisis that people were wondering how we'd ever come out of and what the new normal would look like. And you and I were talking, Brad, and we're thinking it's not so much the new normal, but you had a different thought that you were thinking. Instead of the new normal, maybe we should look at it as, what were you saying?
Well, we talked about, it's really more of the next normal,
normal.
And I think it frames it better than new. It's just basically, I think you said it. It's like we've been refined again, and so.
Right. Yeah, it's I like that next normal, and it's this concept of there's a lot of different ways to look at change, and the two ways that scientists tend to look at change is evolutionary versus revolutionary. And evolutionary is something that kind of evolves in steps. Revolutionary is brand new. So think of the creation of the world as a revolution that was new, and evolution is over time things have changed, certainly in our country and economy. So I think that's a good way to look at this. And we thought today we would look at some of what does the next normal look like as it relates to some of the spaces we deal with. And our business, of course, is providing skilled craftsmen for manufacturing, construction, transportation, specialty services. And those are the areas we're most focused on. So what does this look like coming out of this? What are some of the things that we may have to deal with and embrace going forward? But it doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to change or needs to change, does it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a lot of people are anxious or have some angst. Like you said, the term the new normal or the next normal is a lot of people just want things to get back to normal, and I think in some aspects, I think that's actually the right thing. Not everything needs to change. When we go through, whether it was 9/11 or the 09 financial crisis, or you could go even further back in time. But this is another thing where we want to talk a little bit today about some things that I think we do want to see change, because there's some refining, there's some better. But there's a lot of things that we do just want to get back to normal, and I believe they will. I think things like, for example, I want to go out to dinner with my wife, and I don't want the restaurant to be half full. I want it to be full. And I love college football. I know you do too. I don't want to watch a virtual football game. I want to watch real football and with a crowd of people, and I want to be able to get on an airplane and go relax somewhere, so those things I think we do want to, and I believe we will in time here get back to normal.
Yeah, I hope so. I was just I was at a grocery store, dropped by there, and talking about this season we're in now. It almost looked like everybody eyed you with a bit of suspicion, and you had to really be careful about your distance. And shame on me, I didn't have a mask, and some people did, and those with masks looked at me like I was unclean, like So I'd love to get back to the place where I can just go grocery shopping, and obviously there's some things to change that are for the good, but just being paranoid about being around people, I'd love to get back to normal there. But as you mentioned as well, there's going to be some things that, whether we are embracing them or not, there are going to be some things that are going to change that we need to be thinking about, and in some ways we need to adjust and prepare for, and other ways are just going to be imposed upon us. And we thought we'd talk about a couple of those things that we were thinking about. And the first thing that seems very obvious if you pay attention to what's going on domestically here and the global place, it's this idea that traditional supply chains and the way that we do business, it's almost going to, for lack of a better term, contract, where it becomes much more domestic, much more localized. And I think that's going to provide a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of challenges potentially. You got some. What do you think on that, Brett?
Oh, absolutely. I think as leaders and with companies, in what in our space, in what we do, and in providing skilled trade talent, to organizations, there's already, as we know, back before we spent every minute of every day dealing with COVID and talking about COVID, there used to be a big skilled talent shortage at America, and the reality is we still have one. And I think what we're seeing happen, and what appears is going to happen, is this pandemic has really created an awareness of some of the risk of having too many things offshore, very specifically, medical or Medicaid, penicillin, those types of things, swabs. But I think it potentially will go even further. Time will tell. There's a lot of equipment manufacturers or cars, for example, where they get a part here and a part there, and a lot of them are overseas, and some of it's done, because it's economical, and some of those things, may continue in that way. But I think there'll be a push or an opportunity for a lot of manufacturing to come back domestic. Now, whether that's expansion in current facilities or new facilities, whatever it is, I think that's going to happen over the next few years, which is just going to put more pressure on finding the talent to do that, which in a normal podcast we would be talking about, what are you going to do as a leader to prepare for that? And I think we have to start thinking that way. If that, there was a quote, I use often, and I think Gallup did it in a poll. It actually wasn't a quote, it was a poll, but and they talked about CEOs' number one concern of hitting their goals is finding the talent to execute. So the business is there, the plan's there, we can get it done, but we can't find the talent. I mean, I think the pressure this opportunity that's going to happen in manufacturing is just going to bring that to another level. So you've really going to have to be on top of your game, the companies, to go out and use every means to find that talent, which is obviously at Skillwork. That's an area that we live in every day. So.
Right. Yeah, those are great points. And, while this could be a challenge to some people who depend on that supply chain for their business, they've built their business around supply chain from offshore. They're going to have to look at adjusting those. At the same time, it could be a great opportunity for a company to provide those materials that maybe they're in a different space right now, and they could retool, so to speak, to be able to fill the gap for that supply chain vacuum that's going to be there. We're seeing it all over the place right now. I mean, General Motors is producing ventilators. There's a company up in the Northeast that produced, I think, some sort of technical equipment. Now they're producing swabs for medical testing. So great opportunities exist there. But I do think that this increased demand for domestic and American made is going to become a kind of a battle cry that you're going to hear over the next several years. And so there's a great opportunity for companies to step in there. And the other thing, Brett, we talked about earlier in another podcast is this infrastructure, this big infrastructure bill that continues to get a lot of attention, that President Trump and I think a lot of political leaders see that now is the time to be able to invest a lot of dollars into infrastructure. So bridges, airports, highways, et cetera. That's just going to be a ton of manufacturing. And again, in our space, providing skilled labor to support that is going to be a big opportunity as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's going to be a massive amount of push to get everybody back to work, and this stimulus is going to drive a lot of that, and then additional stimulus for the things you're talking about, which is just going to be would appear to be just a huge opportunity for construction, manufacturing, even the transportation space that we're in. I mean, right now,
right.
With what's happening with courier services and whatnot, those fleets have to get repaired. So all of that appears to be part of the next normal. So.
Yeah, talking about those fleets, and a direct to consumer delivery type service for consumer goods, that kind of leads into the next thing we were going to talk about, is this whole change in the way that people conduct their work, people conduct their lives. And I think it's going to have a lot of impact on the way businesses need to rethink how their employees work, how their customers engage, what does it look like to go on a business trip and those sort of things. So maybe we should tee that up and look at what are some of the thoughts and some of the things that we might need to be thinking about to prepare for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we talked about it, Tim, some things we do want to just get back to normal. But other things, I do believe there'll be some benefit and some efficiencies that will come out of what we've learned in this time and the next normal, as we're calling it. And that is things like you're mentioning. I think, I don't know exactly what it, obviously we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I think, business travel is probably going to look a little different. Doesn't mean it's all going to go away. Obviously, people are going to get back on planes and they're going to go meet customers and they're going to, visit facilities and all those things. But some of those meetings, now that people have gotten used to doing it, remotely, those things, I think there'll be efficiency there. I think, just the whole idea of content, I mean, right now you have, my wife is a designer and real estate agent, and they can't do open houses now, so they're doing virtual open houses. So the utilizing content and video and technology. Our partners, in this reveal, does that for us, and they're so really a bit ahead of that in recognizing the need. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think the ability to create content, to be able to do things virtually. A lot of people, what do we do? Anytime, whether I'm going to buy shoes or a house, I'm going to look first on the internet and then decide, what to do from there. Well, the better that content. So things like that, I think will change. I mean, what other things are you thinking of, Tim?
Well, definitely I'm seeing our people, our staff here, talking to them. And, we had a contingency operational plan in place where we could work remotely. And we've been doing that effectively. We've been learning a lot and getting better at it. And I think we've gotten to the place where I feel like our productivity we haven't lost any of our productivity and everybody working virtually. I think there is something that is being lost in just the human interaction. And like you said, we'll get back to some different state at some point. But I've heard a lot of talk about companies. We were just talking about it earlier this morning about a big technology company that's essentially going to do away with their brick and mortar space, that they're going to go completely virtual and meet quarterly as a whole organization, come together to have more of like a retreat or an outing, but their day-to-day operations will be 100% virtual. And I expect to see more of that. On the other hand, you have a lot of work that you can't do virtual. You have to be in place. Construction, manufacturing, you have to have people there on the floor. You have to have people building those things. So there's going to be a mix. And so this kind of herd mentality that everybody can work virtually and it's great, that doesn't apply to everybody in all cases. So it's not the new normal for everybody. The next normal is there could be a mix of that. But I think a wise company will take a look at what percentage of our business can we do virtually? Does it make just sense to do that? What percentage do we need to be able to come back? And that may include having to look at your physical layout. And with this next normal, maybe that includes a little bit more spacing, or you may have to have shifts that are separated, or crews that come in at different times. So there's a lot of thinking with respect to how your organization functions, everything from physical layout to virtual productivity. So there's going to be a lot of that. I think that companies right now should be experimenting with what works for them and what do they need to do to be able to go back. It's not going to, I don't think in all cases, going to be a light switch where everybody just shows back at the same facility with the same big break room, with everybody working shoulder to shoulder. I don't think that society will be in a place where that's going to be, widely acceptable as it was in the past, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're right. Like we've said, I mean, there'll be things that got adopted during this time that will and should, continue to carry forward. We do a lot of business in the food manufacturing space, and as everybody knows, those facilities, those I'm not going to put them completely on the front line like the doctors and nurses, but they are doing incredible work to keep the food supply going, and walking into that, and we all know now, there's some struggles in that, but companies are putting a lot of things in place, everything from the way they're laying out lines to putting up, plexiglass shields, types of things. I'm not sure all that comes down, because obviously if you can keep the flu out, if you can reduce the flu, I mean, there, the other things to just keep your workforce, healthy, are not bad things. And so I don't know that all of that necessarily, will go away. And then, and I think there'll be a lot of opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of smart people out there that will recognize that there's going to be things. There will be new businesses. We've talked about it before. There'll be new businesses that we don't even know the names of yet. That in a few years will be multi-billion-dollar companies that and I hate to use the word took advantage, that seized the opportunity to solve a problem. Great companies solve problems. So I think those opportunities will be there as well.
For sure. I can't help thinking, Brett, I know you and I, we kind of view everything and from our lives to our business to our families through the lens of our faith. And, and I think it's, you and I see ourselves being very fortunate that, we can, in times of testing like this, it really feels good to know that, that we are safe in the hands of, in our mind, our Heavenly Father, and be able to see these things. And I get great comfort from knowing that the process that He takes us through of refinement, we talked a little bit about that offline here, about the process of going through trials, through challenges, through growth, and the refinement process of like fine metal, that it gets heated up, impurities are removed. And then at the end of the process, if you allow the impurities to get removed, or the inefficiencies, as it were, then it comes out in a stronger, more pure state. Looking at that. So it's interesting for me to look at this and to look at opportunities on how we can allow some of those things to be taken off, but other things remain. And I think that's what you're referring to early on with your point, that it's good to look at this as an opportunity to change and to embrace new things. At the same time, there's some real goodness in what we are as a society and the people and in our businesses. And that's important to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think we'd be remiss. There's things that happen in our lifetimes. Obviously, this is one that's happened to us, all across the world. But there's things that happen to us and that we learn from, that we get refined, and it's, as we say, you pity the person that just goes back to their old self, and so you can say the same thing here. I think there's a balance. I think, in everything, we don't want to, as I say, you don't want to swing from one side of the horse and fall off the other side, but somewhere in the middle, there's going to be a balance of things that we're going to really, really refine and take from this. We're going to implement our businesses, and other things. We're going to smile when they're normal, and so we're looking forward to that day.
That's right. That's a good way to put it. So appreciate you guys joining us here. Brett, thanks for the give and take. Always great insights from you. So I guess our challenge for those of you listening today is just simply, are you preparing for the next normal, as we like to call it? And are you looking at opportunities, what they'll look like, and starting to plan now for what it looks like when we get back to what our lives look like in 6 months, 8 months, even a year from now. So we want to thank you for joining us here today. Your time is valuable, and we don't take that lightly. So I appreciate you joining us. If you'd like more information about our company and what we do and what we stand for, especially help overcoming skilled labor shortage, that's what we are really in business to do. So please look us up. Visit us at our website, skillwork.com. Until we see you next time, thanks for joining us.